Good evening, everybody. Would you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you take roll call, please?
Mr. Gilbert?
Here.
Mr. Teesort?
Here.
Mr. Detzel? Mr. Heather?
Here.
Mrs. Talby?
Here.
We always like to start the meeting off with our mission statement. And our mission statement is Northwest Local School District will create a responsive learning community where all students are valued, challenged, and guided along a pathway to success. And first item is to approve the agenda for this evening. I need a motion and a second for that.
So moved.
Second.
That passes 4-0. All right.
We are excited tonight that so many people came out to hear our food services presentation, and we appreciate that. So I'd like to introduce Lisa Robeson, our food services supervisor, who is going to provide the annual update to the board.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to see this. We are here to discuss the nutritional regulations and the district's compliance with those regulations. And in light of the national concerns with poor health and childhood obesity, we've become particularly vigilant with the foods and beverages that are served in schools. Together, parents, school staff, and students can create a healthy school nutrition environment, and it's been shown that better health equals better learners. Kids with healthier eating patterns and enough physical activity tend to have better grades, remember what was taught in class, behave better in class, and miss less school time. Wellness policy helps create the healthy school environment. We have recently amended ours and updated it, and our current wellness policy talks about nutrition education, physical activity, food and drinks sold to students, nutrition promotion, food and beverages not sold but provided to students, food and beverage marketing, and informing the community, leadership, and more. So all food and beverages sold in the school during the day must follow Smart Snack standards. There are standards for fat, calories, sodium. Our standards are in alignment with those regulations. However, a new updated regulation was put out on July 1st, and the USDA established this new set of standards for milk, whole grains, and sodium for this year. It was actually supposed to be years ago. It was supposed to be implemented, but because of COVID and then some legislative regulations, they actually had to postpone it. So this is considered the transitional rule, and this transitional rule is just going to serve as a bridge to transition from where we are now to where we want to be. And it allows for flavored, low-fat milk. It stipulates that 80% of the grains must be whole grain rich, and whole grain rich means composed of at least 50% whole grains per serving, and then reduces the sodium limit from the 1230 to 1420 daily to 1107 to 1278. The only exemptions to this policy apply to events after the regular school day, and the regular school day ends 30 minutes after the bell rings and then begins again at midnight the night before the bell rings. So fundraisers, sports, interscholastic events are all exempt from that. We touched on this briefly, but any of the foods sold to students as part of a reimbursable meal or as part of an à la carte item, whether it's a snack, beverage, dessert, they all have to be whole grain rich. They have to have their first ingredient be a fruit, vegetable, dairy product, or protein food. Be a combination food of at least a quarter cup of fruit and or vegetable. And the food must meet the nutrient standards for calories, sodium, sugar, and fats. Even beverages sold have those regulations. The Kids Healthy Eating Index scores recently came out, and it's a measure of how closely diets reflect the dietary guidelines for America. And it showed that children received their healthiest meals of the day at school. Researchers analyzed diets of over 21,000 children between 2003 and 2018 and found that the percentage of poor nutritional quality food consumed from schools declined from 55% to 24% over the 15-year period. And the decrease mainly occurred after 2010, which is when the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act started. And that is all I have for you today. Does anybody have any questions about nutrition guidelines, our wellness policy, anything else?
I appreciate you doing this because a lot of people don't realize what all goes into your department and serving these kids several meals per day.
I
So
promise I don't do it
thank
just
you.
to be mean.
how have you guys adjusted with going from the free lunches to now kids, have to buy that again? You've had a lot of struggles, I'm sure, with that.
It has been a struggle. The biggest problem we have found is the charging. Kids are so used to being free
Yeah.
that now they have to come up with this money if they don't qualify for reduced or free meals. So our charges are pretty out of control. But we also want to make sure that we're keeping the wellness of the whole child in the forefront of our minds. So we want to make sure they're fed and adequately so they still get the fruits and vegetables and nutrients they need. So it is a struggle, but I can honestly say there has not been a single child denied a meal yet. So we're doing it, but it's tough.
Yeah. Have we thought about going out into the community and asking, other organizations to donate to cover charges for those kids, or do we?
So we have something called the Feed It Forward. It's an account that anyone can donate to.
Okay.
It can be staff members, other children, other parents, community members. The problem we have found with that is because it's a donation, it doesn't stipulate who it's being donated to besides a school, and sometimes, not
Sure.
often, but there have been on occasion people who take advantage of it, and so the donations have kind of leveled off
Yeah.
because the same children are utilizing it when in fact it should have been used for those who occasionally forget money
Sure.
rather than on a daily basis. So it is still available. We still do use it.
Okay.
It's extremely beneficial for especially the reduced students who are 30 cents for breakfast and 40 cents for lunch, because that sometimes is tough. A first grader may not know mom and dad didn't put money on their account. So it's wonderful in that respect, and it is still utilized. It's just not overly funded.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
And Lisa, your department does a great job of reaching out to families as they start to accrue and having the conversation about need and letting them know they still can fill out the forms if they have something that changes.
Absolutely. Yeah, a form can be filled out all year long, and you can fill out 10 if your financial situation necessitates that. If there's a person who has come into the household that wasn't previously when you filled out the original, or if there was an illness and you can no longer work to adjust income can be filled out as many times as possible. And we try to help as many people as we can.
Question, the free food is exempt from these guidelines, so do you get any free food that you hand out, I guess, above? I'm thinking that's probably like what, breakfast,
Yeah,
the breakfast and things like that?
last year we were fortunate enough to partner with the Children's Hunger Alliance, and they donated meal kits for over Thanksgiving break and over the spring break, I believe. We had a lot of that left over, so we were able to kind of, we call it our share table. We put it out there. Any child can come up to that table, grab what they need. They can take it home. They can put it in their backpack. They can take it to a sibling. So we do allow that. But we cannot, as the food service department, cannot provide anything that doesn't meet the regulations.
Gotcha. And then the last thing I want to say is, this is a 24-hour thing. I stopped at Marco's to grab lunch one day, and I ran into Rob, and there was like a stack of boxes by the door, and I'm like, oh, you're making some boxes? He goes, no, that's going to Coleraine High School. I said, you're taking all these pieces to Coleraine High School? He's like, yeah. I said, there's nutritional guidelines you have to follow. He goes, oh, I know. I sat with Lisa for many hours figuring this out.
Yeah,
So it goes into everything that
it does.
comes through the threshold of the doors.
It does. But Marcus has been wonderful.
Yeah.
They cater to us 2 times a month at every single building, and we rarely have issues,
Yeah.
so.
And I imagine that was a lot of work to sit down with their product and figure out where all of that falls in this equation.
It was. The most difficult part was the whole grain crust, to get it palatable. But it really is, they did, I don't know how they did it, some sort of magic. It's wonderful. It's really good. And the kids love it. And so it's a product that meets all the regs and is delicious as well, so.
Yeah. And I don't think people understand that, like, if you're going to do a partnership with somebody like that, how much work goes into it on the front and back end, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah. So thank you for all your hard work and your
Yeah.
team.
no problem. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Student Achievement Liaison Report.
All right, I have a lot of things to read tonight, which is a great thing. At Coleraine High School, we'd like to give a shout out to 12th grader Michael Congas for transforming the area right past the varsity softball field. When you come up the main driveway, it is called Cardinal Cove now. And Cardinal Cove is an outside learning space designed to be used by staff and students. Michael completed this as his Eagle Scout project. He planned, organized, and executed this project alongside 30 volunteers. So we'd like to thank Michael for his service. I've seen pictures, and that area looks great over there. So also some of the things that he dug up in the middle of that, I think there were keys and all clothes and all kinds of stuff they found over there. So also the marching band for competing in the Bands of America on November 11th at Lucas Oil Stadium. All members of the band did a phenomenal job, and thanks to them for representing Coleraine High School. We are proud of your hard work and dedication. Congratulations to Kate White and Lauren Clifford on their decision to continue their education and athletic career at the collegiate level. Kate signed to play volleyball at IUPUI, and Lauren is going to be swimming at The Ohio State University. Congratulations to both of them. And to our CHS drama department on the production of Zombie Prom this past weekend. Thank them for all their countless hours of dedication and hard work put in to such an amazing performance. And congratulations to the following football players for making all GMC. First team is Jameer Carpenter, Donovan Dillingham, Nate Fry, Zay Jennings. And second team is Keegan Garr, Brennan Green, Corey Myrick, and Jordan Robinson. And at White Oak, our students of the month for 6th grade are Tristan Burton, Maya Slavin, Riley Eve, Elijah Stahl, Mahanta Ray, and Ava Helfinger. And 7th grade, Aiden Dufford, Marissa Aarons, Brooke Moore, Carson Breedlove, and Uriel Freeman. and Tyon Gibbons. And 8th grade, Ariana Tipton, Trevor Gutnick, Paris Love Adams, and Amaya Cass. At Corrine Middle School, our student council food drive, they did a food drive for the Pleasant Run Food Bank this past week, and it was a huge success, so we'd like to thank student council and Ms. Schmitz for organizing that. At Montford Heights, all of our third graders are working with volunteers through Monet's Garden, planting items in the garden. And last week, every student planted buckeyes, and they're hoping that by spring, they'll have some seedlings. And the kindergartners have been taking field trips to West Fork Public Library monthly and checking out books and having stories read to them there. At Taylor Elementary, our third graders would like to thank Mr. Yater for coming to their Fall Thanksgiving Enrichment Day. Mr. Yater was a special guest, and they really enjoyed you coming to read to the third grade. Our fourth grade students toured UC's campus and attended the UC women's basketball game. At Struble, we had 39 Struble Blue Jays recognized at the monthly character breakfast. Students were recognized for following the Blue Jay way and exhibiting good behavior and character. Students and a member of their family celebrated with a special breakfast and recognition ceremony, and each student was awarded a t-shirt. Miss Gandenberg's class and Miss Horter's class have been learning about food chains and ecosystems and how energy in the ecosystem gets transferred from one organism to another. To continue learning, the students completed an owl pellet dissection project. Students dissected their owl pellets to find bones and determine what their owl ate, and then made a poster with their findings. Miss Clark and Mrs. Yeager's first grade students completed their goal to fill the class kindness tree with hearts by taking care of others in their class and school. They have set another goal and are working to fill their fall kindness tree with colorful leaves to represent acts of kindness. And the green team at Struble, which is led by Mrs. Horter and Mrs. Taphorn, are partnering with Hamilton County Resource Environmental Services to support Struble's recycling efforts. The green team consists of 30 fifth grade students from Mrs. Horter and Miss Gandenberg's class. At Pleasant Run Elementary, we have the first quarter perfect attendance awards. Fourth grade, Sonny Barnett, Wyatt Brock, Braden Burns, Joseph Dia, Jaden Coward, Colin Cripps, Distra Darji, Osman Diwa, Caden Gardner, Kamari Gill, Emerson Mabidi, Ujwal Magar, Jackson McKinney, Tamar Oliver, Kalesi Pride, Seth Sears, Freeman Settles, Nini Sissoko, Caleb Smith, Renaya Taylor, Dennis Uwazok, Stephen Waver, Dalton Whalen, Dylan Williams, Aiden Yanello, and Bailey Young. And our fifth graders, we have Dylan Adams, Aubrey Bennington, Janaea Bush, Antonia LaCruz, Jemai Collins, Asa Craig, Mekki Daniels, Halaswa Diwa, Blake Ukenlob, Parker Frazier, Isaiah Freeland, Amari Gamal, Josiah Green, Logan Hutchison, Zanaya Jones, Vanessa Matee, Ryla Monroe, Daniel Perdue, Benjamin Uwaki Jr., Maya Wallace, Alondo Willis, and Camden Wyatt. And at Houston Early Learning Center, we have formed our Panda Parent Committee support that's providing conference night dinners for the staff. And they're excited to form this committee so we can partner with our families to gain insight on their experiences at the preschool and help them get involved into volunteer opportunities to help enhance our students' educational journey at Houston. And on Friday, November 4th, they held their annual Community Helpers Day. Preschool students were able to rotate among different stations and learn more about how they support our community. A huge thank you to our community helpers that volunteered: Rumpke, the Postal Service, Corrine Township Fire and Police, Great Parks, Midwest Stonescapes, ASL with our very own Mrs. Baker, the Matt Haverkamp Foundation, and the Corrine Township Canine Dogs, and the Houston Early Learning Center nurse Amy Pining. So congratulations to all these students and staff that have been helping start these programs and just help these students get to where they are and all the great things. These are just, I'm sure, just a few of the things that we've had going on these past few weeks, so
That's great.
congratulations.
And thank you, Nicole, for that comprehensive report, along with the congratulations of all those students. Great job.
All right.
So next we have a student presentation around academic teaming, which is an instructional model that we're using to improve outcomes for kids. So I'm going to let Brenda introduce the team and the presentation for tonight.
If I could have all of the students who are here to lead the activity, as well as the teachers and administrators who are here to support, come on up to this table in front. And our students are going to lead the way. I think Molly is going to kind of provide a little context and help with some introductions.
I brought two of my honors chemistry students, Jack and Olivia, and hopefully you will volunteer, or I think Jack will harass you until you do, to participate in his academic teaming activity. You're going to be discussing whether a certain item is a soup, salad, or sandwich, and they're going to lead you through it. So no chemistry for you.
But a great segue from the food service presentation.
Exactly.
So would anybody like to volunteer?
Sure. Chris is going to stay put because he's not feeling well, so we don't want him around, but the three of us will.
All right, thank you.
I'm Olivia. I go to Corrine High School and I love academic teaming. We use it all the time in the classroom for open discussions.
And I am Jack, and I also go to Corning High School. And I like academic teaming because we use it a lot, and it gets everybody talking and kind of moving a little bit and causes a lot of discussion, which is always great in the classroom.
So in front of you, you will see the summarizing mats. Each of you should have a little section in front of you. You will take the Post-it notes and individually write your definition of a sandwich.
Maybe with Mark, you should make it sandwiches.
So we have these things are called team leader, and they'll be like the leader of the group, and there's also assistant of the team leader, which they kind of help with their team members. So we're going to go like volunteer with the team member. Or team leader. You want to be leader? All right, so there's your roles. Assistant, team leader. All right, and there goes the team member. So now that everybody's done, our team leader is going to, you guys are all going to share your ideas of what a sandwich is, and then you guys are going to summarize it and put it onto one Post-it note, and the team leader will take the role of summarizing it.
Layered stew consisting of 2 pieces of bread, meat or vegetables, your choice, condiments.
I said a sandwich is an item with 2 pieces of bread with a filling.
I said anything that's been
Now that you've finished discussing, you will now use the agree-disagree cards. We use those all the time in the classroom, and this will be individual now. The statement, a taco is a sandwich. So everyone can hold up their agree-disagree cards on whether you think it is or is not a sandwich. And then, okay, go ahead. So now you'll just have a discussion amongst yourselves on why you think it is or is not.
And if you guys want to hold them up in the air so most people can see.
Okay.
Well, taco, generally not a tortilla, not bread.
I think it's because it's only one piece of bread.
I agree with all that.
Do you have any,
Honestly, that's, yeah.
do you have anything to add?
Any questions?
Or is there any questions?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I guess that would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Can we just have these two students also introduce themselves to everybody? Thank you for being here.
I'm Gabby and I go to high school. I'm Justin Hayes and I go to White Oak Middle School.
Thank you.
Thank all.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jack and
Thank
Olivia.
you.
Brenda, do you want the teachers to kind of summarize kind of how they use it in the classroom? Do you want to bring it back up? So Ted, Molly, Anthony, if you guys want to just kind of take a moment and share with the board how you use this in your classroom and what that does for your,
Come on up to the podium so everyone can hear.
I think I already talked to you about it a little, but defining words is really great. Like the periodic law, the kids first try and figure out what they think the definition is, and then we can come together as a class and discuss whether their definitions are accurate or not. You probably didn't see it, but on the back of the agree-disagree cards are sentence stems, so it allows the kids to easily answer. Instead of just saying, I disagree, on the back it says, I disagree because, which sounds simple, but if you're a student that doesn't love talking in front of a whole class, it definitely helps you come out of your shell, and holding something in front of you is nice. I love using them. I think the kids do too.
Thanks.
Anthony Gaines, Northwest High School. We use them pretty much the same way that she spoke of. One particular activity, we always have a driving question at the beginning of each unit, and we would go into the teams and we would discuss what that driving question is. And most recently, a driving question for our unit was dealing with growing up key moments. You know, they were talking about different growing up key moments and what is a growing up key moment. So they had have those discussions, and students would take turns and they would hold up their agree, disagree cards. And students seem to have fun with it, and it enhances the conversation. As she said, some students may not be talkers, but with the sentence stems, you know, it allows everybody to be pulled in. And then the roles that are played, the facilitator and the learning monitor, you know, their role is to make sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard. So it's a good practice.
Thank you. I think that's great.
I'm Ted Gephardt. I teach 7th grade language arts at White Oak. My middle schoolers have had, a lot of screen time, and this kind of helps them go back to collegial discussion, eye contact, listening. As we heard, some students don't automatically want to share. Other students kind of want to dominate. And when you give them some structure, everybody gets a role. Everybody gets a part of that. It increases student autonomy. They're less likely to depend upon the teacher for that answer or that additional viewpoint. They'll talk to their peers. They will, assign roles and naturally get into some problem solving. We saw wonderful kind of icebreaker questions, but you can really take this to deeper questions, deeper discussions, and instead of classroom watching one student or one teacher at a time hold court, there's everyone's talking, everyone's listening, everyone has a role to play.
And then if any of the students who are here want to share about their experience, we'd love to hear from you about how you think it works in your classroom.
I feel like it allows a lot of my friends and I to be able to speak out to others and speak in front of the class. It also helps with kids who also don't really like talking in front of the class. And it's helped me be able to talk in front of the class.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. I toured White Oak and saw they were doing it. Are the other two middle schools also doing it?
Yeah, all of our secondary schools are right now, and the elementaries will come on after they finish letters training.
Okay, thanks. Jack?
It also helps with not one person just dominating the discussion. I know a lot of groups have just that one person that always wants to talk, and this kind of will lead to more of everybody talking, and it's kind of like a fun way to discuss something without taking away the experience of what we're actually discussing.
Jack, do you guys rotate who's your role in the group?
So we always try to change it, because again, that one person will always want to be the team leader, but we kind of just rotate in a circle sometimes, or if one person really wants to do it that day and they don't normally do it, then we'll let them do it. So it just really depends on the day and who's all feeling it. So, yeah, I think it helps a lot. Any other questions?
So a lot of us were up in Columbus, I guess, last week. And one of the things that I toured in the student achievement area is a lot of like behavioral health stuff. I saw this, actually there were 2 locations that had the Hope Squad, correct? Is that the name, Hope Squad?
Yeah, Hope Squad.
And we talked about this peer-to-peer connection, which I fell in love with that. Like, I think that is, and today with kind of the spotlight on behavioral health, and this is such a great forum for someone to feel safe to say something. So I'll ask you, Jack, and any of the other students, have you connected with somebody that you've never connected with before? Sort of like what we just did. We sat with a few people we didn't know. And like something really connect, like a synergy come out of that makes you think that this was really healthy, or this person needed this, or, because I really see that as being a huge benefit out of this, is kids could go through school and never say a word. This won't allow that. But it also, another thing is, it also teaches people to listen versus talk. So, like what you were just speaking to, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple tables in our room that I can just see. All of them really don't know each other at first quarter, and then you get in the second quarter where we're doing a lot more of these and everything else, and they kind of all feel comfortable enough to speak out and not just be the quiet person in the room. So yeah, I definitely think it helps
That's
with
awesome.
that and everything else, that just discussing different things and everything. So
Excellent.
you're welcome. Thank you guys.
I'd just like to thank again all 3 of the teachers who are here. They have all allowed us to videotape in their classrooms or observe in their classrooms and share those videos with other teachers who are coming along. So I really appreciate Ted and Molly and Anthony for stepping out and stepping up to not only grow your classroom and your students, but also other teachers in our district. So thank you for being here tonight, but thank you for what you're doing every day.
For our teachers, was there like resistance to it? Because we certainly didn't have that when I was in school. It was very traditional. It seems like it has caught on because we've heard several presentations now with it. Was it difficult for the kids to jump into it with the structure, or?
I think it's a little weird the first time or 2 you do it, but science requires group work, and it just makes group work so much easier for me to facilitate.
Sure.
mindset change for the teachers. You know, sometimes we tend to be controlling or talk over students more, so we have to pull ourselves back, not rescue right away. As students build autonomy and see each other as resources, that can help.
Yeah.
And it also created to facilitate and able to get around and have more contact with more students and listening to their discovery of responses and questions.
So we're excited to share this and to continue to embark on the journey where we implement this more fully as a district to really help students connect, like you said, Mr. Gilbert, to really develop relationships and those listening skills and discussion skills. So like Ted said, they're more interactive with each other and less with their screens.
Sure. That's awesome.
So thank you. We appreciate all of you being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
If anyone wants to step out at this time who's here for that presentation, you're welcome to do so. Emily is going to take out into the hallway for a moment all of the students, family members, and teachers and administrators who are here for this particular presentation to get a group photo. So you're welcome to come back in and join us afterwards, or if you have other places you need to be, to go ahead and do that.
Did you want to go to Butler Tech next, or do you want to do the legislature?
Are you okay doing that? Okay.
Yep, I am.
Go to Butler Tech next?
No, he's going to do a legislative update.
Okay. Yes, sir. All right, that brings us to legislative update.
Got a couple things here. The one I thought, the first thing I'm going to talk about here, I thought was maybe some kind of joke. But here it is, and it's not a joke, and there's a lot of people upset. The Ohio STRS, it's a state teachers retirement system, or all the teachers in here would know what that is. Parents and students probably wouldn't. Voted on 10/21/22 to give out a $10 million bonus, or an average of $250,000 to up to 100 staff in their investment strategy department. 100 people in the STRS investment strategy department. I mean, I almost thought for a minute I was reading about Fidelity or Vanguard. Despite, this is the part that has everybody up in arms, STRS losing $5.3 billion in 2022. I wish I worked at a place like that, where I got a $250,000 bonus for losing $5 billion, but not to be for me. The union representing retired teachers wants the money returned, and also a new board member for STRS also is demanding the money returned, be returned. All I can say is good luck, and I wouldn't hold my breath on that happening. So anyway, that's leadership in Columbus. Second thing, our state school board in November, a Democratic majority, if you get the pink slips or the blue slips on election day, you'll see that the state parties are now endorsing candidates. Well, the Democrats picked up a bunch of seats. That's the only place where they picked up seats. Well, the Ohio legislature, which now is got a super majority, big majority of Republicans, decided that that's not a good thing. And frankly, I would sit back and wait and see before I did anything, but they've announced that they're going to pass new legislation to strip a lot of authority and power from the Ohio School Board, state school board, so that these folks can, in their opinion, do as little damage as possible. Again, I would be more of let's wait and see what they had planned. So that is it, Mark. Those are the two things that I thought were of interest.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Okay, that brings us to Butler Tech. You may have noticed Jim's not here. He has enjoying a new grandbaby this evening, but that we do have a presentation from the Butler Tech Business Program.
So introduce Chris Trentman from Butler Tech, who will introduce the teacher and the program.
So this year at Butler Tech, we've really put an emphasis on work-based learning inside the classroom. And so with me tonight is Tracy Turney-Smith and some of our students, and they've really resurrected the Spirit Shop at Northwest High School and made it their own business. So I would like them to come on up here and share what they've done.
Good evening.
Hi.
I am very proud of all of my students, but these 3 sophomores, and they're going to knock your socks off, aren't you? Of course. Okay. And they are a delight to work with, and I'm going to let them take it away. I came to them, I guess, 2 weeks ago, and Chris came to me and said, hey, can your students put something together for a presentation? I said, hey, you want to put something together for presentation? They were like, what? What do we got to do? Gave them a couple instructions, and they took it away. They've blown me away with their presentation. So I think Matt has their presentation to put up.
Great.
And I don't know, is this what they can change the slides with? Can they, okay, he said wait there. I think you can change the slides. I'm gonna sit down. And 2 of them are parents. So. Oh, I forget who. So we have Mitzi Brasino Lopez, we have Lily McFarland, and we have Kevin Bolanos Gonzalez. I'm close enough. I did good with that so far.
Were you guys nervous getting in front of everybody?
Yeah.
No reason.
I'm not gonna lie.
No reason to be nervous. None.
Time is extended.
And the delay is probably making it worse, right?
Yeah.
A little bit. Tiny bit.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Weather's cold.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to take time out of this board meeting, I guess, to allow us to present our next Spirit Shop. We're here from Northwest High School, so
And of course,
wear it like a knight.
It's like Shark Tank.
of course, we got the start of our Spirit Shop started from 2017, 2018. Skip it. And from 2018, from 2020 was the beginning of our progress. And 2020, 21, of course, COVID shut us down. And from 2021 to 22 is when we reopened online. And 2022 now is when we reopen online and in person. History in detail. So from 2017, 2018, boosters came to Miss Turney, like sporting events from football to basketball to track, any type of events that we have where the Spirit Shop could open. That's where they mostly sold our merchandise and any other additional items. But of course, they cannot do that as a daily thing. So the boosters came to Miss Turney, and Miss Turney, of course, said yes. And she managed for her DECA students and marketing class to run the shop. And of course, 2018, 2020 is our normal years. We progress in our business journey, and we kept profits high. And 2021, unfortunately, COVID shut us down, and that's where our money started going down. And 2021 to 2022, it reopened online shop, and that's the recession point because we only made very few sales, of course. And 2022 to now is the shop finally reopened as in-person shop, and marketing class and DECA students still run the shop to this day.
Okay, so what do we make in our shop? So we make many things like t-shirts, sweatpants, hoodies, and joggers, but the unique thing about our shop is everything is custom. Any design you want on a shirt has to be school appropriate, can be made. So we print all clothing with our printing press, and then we design all prints with our Cricut machine, and then if we have like a mass order, we order from Transfer Express. So that's where most of our prints come from. And then we also run seasonal sales. So as of right now, we are starting up our Christmas sale with custom mugs filled with candy and or hot chocolate. And then we are also doing custom Santa hats with the Northwest flying N on it, or anything you want for that matter. And then later we are running our Valentine's sale with candy hearts and matching couple shirts. And then over there on the side is a shirt we printed where it says Knights Pride. That's one of the first we did this year. So.
And of course, you may ask how we get these ideas. And Ms. Turney has luckily bought us a little book, a binder that has many ideas, which gives the students a variety of choices to customize, and they can choose whatever they want. Of course, school appropriate.
Along with that, we have the work-based learning, which is also known as the WBL. What is a WBL? Is an educational program that combines classroom instruction with practical work experience that is directly related to a program of study. In Ms. Turney Smith's marketing class, we utilize a different kind of learning, work-based learning. In the WBL, we include hands-on work experience. This helps and allows students to explore careers, develop certain skills, and get a feeling of what a real job feels like. For our work-based learning, our students work on the Spirit Shop, design clothing, print clothing, and then they market and promote stuff.
And of course, these are not spiritual. These are just examples of what workers do at work.
Our best employee of the month.
Along with our WBL, we have our target market, which we sell to the Coleraine Township, our Northwest/Coleraine community. We also sell to students, families, teachers, staffs, and the community at whole. The male population is obviously 51%, and the female is 49%, but we have an average of 900 students that come to us to get shirts customized, obviously school appropriate. Gotta make sure.
Okay, so you might want to know about our employees that run the shop. So of course, like we said, DECA and Ms. Turney Smith's marketing class runs the Nice Spirit Shop, and all employees in the marketing class, as well as DECA, is divided into 8 departments. So pricing deals with how we're going to price our products and how we're going to price our custom prints, as well as finance, who deals with our budget and like our money that comes in and out the shop. And then promotion deals with promoting and marketing our Spirit Shop to the entire school as well as the community. And then human resources deals with employee problems as well as payroll and paydays. And then ordering deals with, once we get a custom order in, we have to make sure that we have the items we need. And if we don't, those employees in that department order the items. And then in product, those people determine every season or every month what we are going to order that month to sell in our shop. And then inventory deals with our items that we currently have, how much we have, what we've sold. And then design deals with our Cricut machine, which prints all the designs. And then all students are paid in empowered bucks, which is Ms. Turney Smith's class currency. We get paid 2 times a month, and then once a month or every 2 months, we have a class auction where we bid on items like snacks, gift cards, anything. So it's a little achievement and prizes for what we've done in her classroom.
And you may be asking how we organize this. In the beginning of the year, Ms. Turney set up a Google form on how kids felt comfortable on where they should be. And so, of course, human resources set that up, and they just based each student on their comfortability on what they would like to work on.
And then we also like to explain this photo. So this is our little workspace in our Spirit Shop. Right now we have Steven and Kevin printing a shirt for, actually it's sweatpants for our principal, Miss Hall. So I'd just like to recognize that.
School appropriate.
Yeah, was,
Yes.
Was it school appropriate?
Okay.
And of course, our Spirit Shop has done a wonderful thing to our community, our contribution to the community. Recently, we provided our volleyball team with volleyball for the Cure shirts. Each each player and coach have got shirts, and all the proceeds made from the shirts was donated to the Pink Ribbon Girls. And as you can see an example right there, there's a shirt, and on the back it has their last name and their volleyball number. And $800 were made with the Spirit Shop and the volleyball team together. Currently, we're making shirts for our Bella Tech digital media team for all the students, all juniors and seniors included. Teachers will get a shirt. Every December, we donate toiletries and perishable items to feed the family. So we hope to, in the future, to donate to more organizations as well and help out in our community.
Put that in there.
And of course, you may be asking, as we mentioned before, DECA. So we would like to explain to you what is DECA.
Okay, so DECA is a business organization. Participants can range from high school students to even college students. DECA helps students in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. Students can compete in districts, state, and nationals. This year, our International Conference and Development Conference, also known as ICDC, is in Orlando, Florida. So this picture right here is from last year in Atlanta, Florida. I went. Really fun. This was Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Really fun experience.
And this is our DECA school-based enterprise. You may be asking, what is a school-based enterprise? It is an entrepreneurial operation in a school setting that provides goods and services to meet the needs of the market and community. Our school-based enterprise is, of course, our Night Spirit Shop. Each year we write a business plan to DECA to explain our shop. There are 3 certifications levels to this SBE: bronze, silver, and gold. Every year we try to get gold certification, which allows us to present our SBE to DECA judges at nationals. And we have been gold since 2019 to 2020. We hope to win gold this year.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, questions.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I love that you have data around who your customers are. I'm a data person, that's awesome. Do you have a website, or is it through?
Yeah, that's our handles right there.
Okay.
Instagram is NWHS_Spirit Shop, and Twitter is NWHS_Spirit Shop.
Our website is coming.
Yeah,
Our website is coming.
soon, to be soon.
It's in the works.
Okay.
And just like to mention, our digital media program is helping build their website as well, so they're partnering together, so they're on the other end of that workplace learning too, so.
Okay. And then do you have hours during the day that you're open for people to come in and shop, or how does that work?
So at lunchtime for an hour and 30-minute period, since we have 3 lunches at Northwest, we set up shop in the lunchroom. A little table, little sign, our product set up, our design set up. So students can come up anytime during lunch and browse our items, our designs, all that.
And of course, we love to leave our display beautiful so people can see it and would like to grab something. To pay, not for free.
So people place orders then at
Yes.
lunchtime? You don't make a lot of product ahead of time, you make it custom for
Yeah,
each
custom.
student? or
If they
each
want
person?
something custom, we will get to them into like 48 hours and tell them the price.
Okay, well, awesome job, you guys are awesome, congratulations, great project, and you guys are gonna be running businesses, no doubt, someday.
So, when you had the roles, there were, I think, 8 roles.
Yeah.
Was marketing there? Was it?
Yeah, we put marketing inside promotion.
The whole class is marketing.
Sure.
Whole class is marketing, so we don't add, we just do promotion and.
So do you go to like I saw Montfort Heights had their Spirit Wear that you can order. Have you gone to any of the other schools and offered that service to them?
Not yet. We're still trying to build up in our school
Sure.
before we go off to others.
And what's the typical turnaround time for an order? I know it probably depends on the size of it, but somebody come in and ordered a couple items, what would be the?
So, if it's a real simple design, like our flying N, that does not take long at all. We usually have that printed up already on our Cricut machine, so probably 2 days. But if you're asking for a huge order with print all over it, probably a week or 2.
What's the biggest order you've ever had for, let's say?
Miss Halls.
Miss Hall.
That's awesome. I'm very, very proud of you guys.
Yeah,
Very
thank
proud
you
of you.
guys. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and
I'm asking for a raise.
bonus.
Yeah, kudos on attaining the gold. It's really impressive. And I love seeing student-run initiatives like this because the real-world experience that you can take away from that is great.
You guys wanna go out and so I would like to get a picture of you as well.
Okay.
And your families
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that brings us to employee organization reports.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. All right, that brings us to community comments. We do have two this evening. We always read our policy basically before we start. So the Northwest Board of Education welcomes the opportunity to listen to Northwest local school district residents' comments, suggestions, and concerns on educational issues. It is important to remember that the board conducts the meetings in public, but the meetings are not a public forum. The intent of the meeting is to allow the board to complete the needed business. Northwest Board of Education meetings are conducted using Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. Most matters which fall under the jurisdiction of the board may be addressed during the community comments section in the order of business. The board will not discuss negotiations and personnel in open session. Any concerns and comments about individuals ought to be brought to the attention of district administration. The school district cannot discuss personal student information, whether or not discipline was imposed on a student, nor the reason for that decision, because disclosure would be in violation of state and federal law. The following guidelines will be used for public commentary. Individuals wishing to address the board must submit a request to speak form and given to the board president prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals will preface their comments by an announcement of their name, address, and group affiliation. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak on agenda items of any topic during the community comments section. Public commentary is confined to that portion of our agenda. Individuals will be recognized to speak once on a given topic. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may individually address or question board members, district administration, or members of the public in attendance. No response to the speaker will occur from board members, district administration, or members of the public in attendance during this time. Appropriate follow-up by district administration may occur at a later time if so warranted. No more than 15 minutes will be devoted to public participation unless the board votes unanimously to continue the discussion. Repetitive statements may be ruled out of order by the presiding officer, and the presiding officer has the right to terminate the participation of any individual or individuals if the person violates the rules of good order. As a board, we wish to listen to our community's comments and not in the allotted time. Therefore, Mr. Yater will monitor the time allotted and provide the speaker with a 30-second reminder indicating when their time expires. So we have two speakers tonight, and the first will be Mrs. Benita Sargent.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
I know most of you, I don't know you, Chris, but hello. I'm here, when Todd was the superintendent and Amy was the treasurer, and I know you still are, Amy, they explained in very good detail when we went for a levy 3 or 4 years ago, how that levy, why we needed it, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think part of the reason that the levy passed was because of how they were so great about explaining all that. For people in my own homeowner, still don't have children or grandchildren in the district, but asked to help pass the levy based on my home taxes. Of course, we all know that the current levy just failed 64 to 36%. So as part of the community that I feel that's the representation of the homeowners in the Northwest School District, I feel that we need to talk about why did the levy fail. I think the levy failed because it wasn't explained to us how and why and how the money was going to be used when we just had that levy, that big levy that went through. I know you as board members and everybody that's involved in the school, the day-to-day, you understood that. But we in the community didn't understand that. But the main reason I came here tonight to speak, there's rumors constantly going around. And the current rumor is because the levy failed, you're going to try, not you, you're going to suggest getting an income tax. We know Ross School District has that income tax. I want to understand, if you're going to do an income tax, how does that work and who does that affect? Because it really does affect the people that are over 65, that still own the homes, that still pay the majority of the taxes. So do I direct that question to somebody in the room? Do I wait till you decide how that works? Do I go to a website and see how that income tax affects us?
We don't give answers now, but what we can do is follow up with you after the meeting. So is your contact information on the card?
Just my address, I don't think my phone number's on there.
Before you leave, make sure that one of us have your contact information, and we'll reach out to you and answer all your questions. Because we don't answer them here publicly, but we can get to you afterwards, and we'll
Okay.
get you your answer.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, I know that they talked about, at a meeting I missed, about allowing phones. As a community member, I know parents want it, but it does
I need
have
30 seconds left.
Okay.
No, you're fine. You got 30 seconds. Keep going.
Oh, that's okay.
Alrighty. Thank you, Benita. Next is Kim Yates.
Good evening.
Evening.
I want to discuss the book challenge that you guys will be discussing later on. There are two books up for discussion. All Boys Aren't Blue and Flamer. I'm not as familiar with All Boys Aren't Blue, but I am familiar with Flamer. I just want to say that Flamer is more than the title, and it's more than any of the innuendos or statements the young men make in the book. As a parent, I'm a parent of two teenagers at Northwest High School, and I have a son and a daughter. So some of the language in the book I don't agree with. However, any of us that have young boys know that, and they're at a Boy Scout camp, some of this language would be spoken. But with that, the book is more than that. It's about a young Filipino white American boy coming in age in 1995. And he's about to go to middle school. Or he's going from middle school to high school. And at the camp, he's come to terms with being gay. And so he's being bullied. He's trying to learn how to take up for himself. And with that, this book teaches you empathy. It teaches the person that's reading that book how to be sympathetic to someone who's trying to come to terms to who they are. And also, he was being bullied. So he had friends that supported him. He had a pen pal that he was able to reach out with. His home life was not the best. And his life at school was not the best because of him trying to come to terms with himself being gay. It deals with not making assumptions about people. One of his friends was a football player, and all the boys thought that he was a certain way because he was a quote-unquote jock, but he was not. He was more into other things. So it teaches students how to not make assumptions about people. It deals with friendship. It deals with accepting people that are different from you. It's also about redemption. In the end, he wanted to take his own life. And that's where it goes with spirituality. He had an encounter with the Holy Spirit that got him to change himself from wanting to commit suicide. So it talks about a lot. And this book is aimed for young adults.
About 30 seconds left, Kim.
And this bothers me that both books are being challenged, and it deals with the LGBTQIA+ community and to people of color. I have a lot more, but that's all I can say for now.
Great. Thank you, Kim. All right. That brings us to superintendent consent items.
Tonight, we have several things for your consideration. We'll start with personnel.
So for personnel this evening, for your consideration, we have 1 retirement, 13 resignations, 8 initial appointments, 2 change in status, and various supplemental items.
For donations, we have 3 staples to all Northwest students for $1,535. Northwest Flower Fund to Friends of the Student for $68.68. And the new Pleasant Run Middle School Food Pantry receiving donations with an estimated value
$2,265.85. We also have several vendor contracts, some public contracts, non-public contracts, I'm sorry, athletic trainers, music, special education, communication services from the Hamilton County ESC, and an extension to a real estate purchase agreement. We also have the approval of the 23-24 school calendar that was presented for information last time. And with that, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the adoption of the consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have some questions. On the vendor contracts, the Butler County ESC for educating students admitted, can we talk about what that is or learn more about that?
Yeah, so let me pull that specific one up. The Butler County ESC, sometimes when students have issues that we need to place them in a different setting, this is one of the places where a student can be placed for additional special education services. So it's their least restrictive environment for the educational services they need that are beyond what we could do within the district.
Okay, so we pay extra then per day for those?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Hamilton County for communication services, is that a new contract or what's that?
That is to fill the gap while Lindsay Creasy is out on leave.
That seems really high for a short term.
It's a maximum. They bill as we use them. So the more information, the more time they bill, the more we use. So like we had several crisis communication things that took time. So they'll bill us based accordingly with that being a maximum.
And then the development group with the real estate purchase agreement, what's that one?
Chris, you want to talk about that one?
So that's for the Beavis property. We've had 2 prior extensions. This extension will extend it for 18 months, and they will pay us a non-refundable $25,000 fee to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of HR questions. I've been doing this for a few years now. The turnover, for lack of a better word, are we in line, like, is that this amount of people that we're losing, is that a normal pace, for lack of a better word? Or, because I also noticed that over the last 3 meetings, we've had over 100 intermittent, or FMLA petitions. To me, that seems like an astronomical amount. I used to help manage that in the hospital that I worked at. I worry that in conjunction with, Darrell, when you gave the State of the Union at Coleraine High School, that there was a 20% buy-in in leadership, is there some type of correlation between that and the amount of people that basically have an opportunity? I mean, clearly, and I'm not down speaking the need for that at all. But it certainly does create an operational problem if we don't have people in place. Is that something that you investigate, or is this a normal pace? Is this more than you normally see?
Do you want to take that, Susan, or you want me to?
So, since this is my first year here, I think right now, though, across the region, we've seen a lot of turnover, particularly with classified staff. That is not unique to us. That is something that's happening, honestly, across the region. So we wish it were different. In terms of FMLA, that is not managed by...
It's pretty typical for the amount of FMLA we see on a yearly basis from a historical perspective. But that's one of the reasons why with the sub issue, trying to find subs, when you have your daily absences, in addition to long-term absences for intermittent and continuous FMLA, it compounds the already sub problem that we have.
Absolutely.
Which then causes staff to have to cover for other people, take on extra responsibilities, which increases the stress. So it's a compounding problem. and it snowballs.
You can't ever get ahead. I mean, you hire 2 bus drivers, you lose 3.
With FMLA, last place I worked, I was told that an employee could just call in and say FLMALA day, and didn't have to give any reason, and, could call an hour before it was time to report to work. And I don't know how you can run a business with that. That's just, it's crazy.
So there has to be medical documentation.
Yeah, but I know, I'm in that business, and just to get somebody out of your face, you'll sign it. You will sign it. Just, okay, where do I sign?
But
Goodbye.
Chris, you are correct. Once someone has it, if they take the day if they have intermittent FMLA and they take the day, we can't question it or challenge it. So it's one of the reasons why with the amount of FMLA we have and the compounding sub-issue, the just normal daily absences, it does create a snowball effect, and it does take our staff and stretch them very thin.
So I guess because you were in HR for a while, is there any way of taking the data as to why and trying to create some type of initiatives or something that we can fix to make it a more comfortable environment? Or if these are like stress related or whatever it is, that we can dig into that a little bit and try to create an environment where it's not so prominent?
So Kiva leads a lot of our health and wellness, and she works with Austin, who is our benefits coordinator, and they do try to put out a lot of information around the different kinds of things. Like, we know musculoskeletal is a major issue, so we do things with different vendors to try to help people with musculoskeletal issues. So we try to target our wellness incentives and our wellness programs around the data around why people are missing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Back to buses, because I have to ask every meeting about buses. I know there was some kids who were forgotten a few days in a row at a stop, and then we had a few bus accidents. I know we've talked about a few new bus drivers. Are we getting ahead at all? It seems like we've had more cancellations rather than less. Do we feel like have any of the new hires been brought in after their training and?
So actually, as of this week, all of our routes are now filled. Hooray. The challenge is that we have several bus drivers out on FMLA, so this is a timely conversation. We have 3 in training though. They're about 3 weeks away, so those are the folks about whom we were speaking a few board meetings ago. And we actually have 3 pending, which means they're in their very early stages. So it takes about 7 weeks from the moment we meet them to get them through their paperwork and then through their training. So we're hoping at the beginning of the new year that we will have folks in place. But we are fully staffed on paper. It looks great on paper. But then we know that we have those FMLAs.
And we're hoping we have a couple come back here soon.
Yes, and we're supposed to have 2 folks come back to us in January.
Okay, thank you guys.
And do I,
Yeah.
didn't we make a motion? We're just waiting on the vote.
I put the same name in both spots, and it's not like
Kick it out.
It passes 4-0. That brings us to Amy Wells.
Okay, so good evening. We have several items this evening. We have our minutes from October 24th, regular meeting minutes to dispense with reading of and approve. We have our financial report for the month of October, so we're a third of the way through the school year. Our all funds balance is $82 million. Our unreserved general fund balance is almost $42 million. Our revenues for the fiscal year to date are $43 million, or 44% for your projected revenue, and our expenditures are $29 million, or about 30% on target. Our investment weighted average return is 2.27%, and our list of monthly bills, we have our routine monthly bills, like utilities, benefit deductions that we have to submit, and tuition payments for out-of-placement students, as well as we have our ESSER coaching, some student software and annual licenses. We had severance payments, some maintenance and technology supplies. Our Colerain High School class of 2022 had a donation. There was some mulch, and then we have our auxiliary and grant fund payments that we take care of each month. So we, this evening, we also have a then and now certification that needs approved by the Board of Education. We have one. It's for our enrollment software. It's about $25,000. This is our annual software that just didn't get a purchase order in place for the start of the fiscal year. We also have our amended certificate back from the County Budget Commission. So in September, we approved our permanent appropriations, in which we have to submit to the County Budget Commission. They have approved our amended certificate that our revenue will exceed our appropriations. And so then we, as a board, you have to accept the amended certificate as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission for $266 million. We also need two resolutions this evening that are annual resolutions. One is to authorize the advance of tax payments for the calendar year of 2022. So as a Board of Education, you have to grant me the authority to request our tax payments as they are collected by the county. And then we'll request those on a weekly basis so that we can receive our funds. And then the
And they
second.
hope you forget to ask.
And the second resolution is for the annual tax budget. All of the local governments operate on a calendar year, but we are on a fiscal year. So the Ohio Revised Code allows us to do a modified tax budget, which is our 5-year forecast, which hopefully we'll approve later this evening, and also our debt payment schedules so that the county can determine what millage needs to be collected on the tax bills. So it allows us to present a modified tax budget instead of a full budget for the year, since we are in a fiscal year and not a calendar year, effective January 1. So with that, I ask the board to approve the fiscal consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Okay, that passes 4-0.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
And then tonight we have a revision to the high school AP exam fee schedule for this year. The curriculum department's requesting a $1 change based on the fact that the College Board raised the cost of each exam fee. So the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the revised exam fee as listed.
So moved. Second.
$1.
Carson's gonna add me a $1.
That passes 4-0.
And next we have an approval from personnel. That is an approval of the basketball coach for White Oak Middle School. So the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the personnel item as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Mark, I ask that we defer the vote on that until after executive session. I have some information I'd like the other board members to have. And if they want to vote on it afterwards, and that's fine, but I think that they're not informed on the particulars of that I'd like to share with the board members.
Can we come back to this?
We approved the agenda at the beginning, so are we able to amend it now?
We've done it before. We've amended agendas many times in like 13, 14 years here.
You have to take action to amend an agenda, but technically once you vote your agenda in, that's your business for the evening.
I'll make a motion that we amend the agenda to come back to this personnel item after executive session.
Well, if we're tabling an agenda item to later in the meeting, is that changing the agenda? Okay.
a second? I'll second it. Bless you. Let's go.
Roll.
Yeah.
Mr. Heather?
Aye.
Mr. Gilbert?
Aye.
Mr. Petzort?
Aye.
Mrs. Talby?
Aye.
All right. The five-year forecast, Amy.
So it's November, and we do the five-year forecast twice a year. In November, we have to file our five-year forecast with the Ohio Department of Education, and in May, we do an update of how the year went and file that one with the Ohio Department of Education. Everything that we do is rooted in our strategic plan, including financial stability. I just want to remind everybody that the Board of Education passed a resolution of financial parameters and community partnership first in May of 2019, and then again renewed that in November of 2021. And this partnership stipulates that we will not increase our operations more than 3% per year, so that our community, as a partnership, so that our community can help support us. We also have a cash balance reserve policy that says we will keep 60 days of operations within our cash balance reserve. As part of our community partnership, our community asked us to have smaller, more frequent levies, so the partnership talks about a 5-year, $5 million rolling levy cycle. And then we also make sure to align our resources to our instructional priorities. So as part of the internal metrics that we watch for as we're developing our budgets, is in aligning our resources to our instructional priorities, we make sure that at least 70% of our budgets are going towards instruction, and no more than 10% is going to office and central supports. Just last year in 2022, 73% of our operations was spent on instruction, 20% on operations, and 7% on office and central supports. We also utilize class size targets in our staffing plan. We have a per pupil or a per staff budget allocation for all our buildings and our departments, and we have a square feet budget allocation for things like utilities and cleaning. To remind everybody that for strong schools and a strong community, we have a 2017 emergency levy that will expire, and we'll have the last collections in the fiscal year of 2027. And there is a 2019 emergency levy that will expire and be last collected in fiscal year 2029. As part of our resolution, the community partnership, the board projected a $5 million emergency operating levy in fiscal year 24, and committed that that levy would last at least 5 years. But what changes have we had since November of 2019? We reduced our operations $2.6 million as part of our commitment to our community in 2019. Then we had the pandemic, which shut us down in March of 2020. We've since had unfilled positions and turnover. We've received ESSER funding, where we've been able to shift some of our positions that are general fund operations into ESSER funded positions for a few years. And then there's also been a new state funding formula in fiscals 22 and 23. Some concerns with the state funding formula are that the inputs that calculate the new formula are based on 2018 costs. However, our valuations are based on 2021 right now and headed to 2022. As the costs are lower and our valuations are higher, this makes our community appear to be wealthier, which reduces state share in the funding formula. Previously, before the new state funding formula, we were a 60-40 split, 60% our local community and 40% from the state. With the new funding formula, we are 72-28, 72% locally and 28% from the state. So as you can see, that shift has made our community seem wealthier. The other issue is that the current state funding formula is only being phased in, and right now it's phased in at 33%, which is a loss of about $3 million per year in the past 2 years with the new state funding formula. And there will be a new budget formula for 24 and 25. They would not put this new state formula in law. They left it in the budget cycle. So starting in about around February, we'll have a new proposal that'll go through June to start funding us for July. However, there are some highlights in the new state funding formula. They changed the way students educated elsewhere are funded. In the past, we would be funded 40 or 28%, and then we would pay our share. Now we are able to keep our local dollars here. That's about $4 million per year that we are able to maintain, that previously we would send out. And then when it's fully funded, we should see $3 million more per year in state funding. So how is this on our impact on our financial stability? So our revenues and expenditures are fairly consistent from year to year with our operations. Currently, we have 62% of our district is funded by local property taxes, whether that is directly from real estate and personal property or from the state through tax credits. We also have 27% through the state funding formula, including restricted grants, and 11% comes from other, which is our tuition payments from other districts, interest revenue, and our TIF revenue from Green Township. And also our Medicaid reimbursement. I wanted to show you this graph as it shows the difference between local and state share for basic education. The orange part of the graph is our local share with the state funding formula, and again, it's for basic education. This does not include expenses for things like additional supports for our special needs students, our ELL students, gifted, transportation, electives, AP courses, and athletics. This is just basic education. And as you can see, it runs between $7,500 to $8,000 a year on what the state calculates as basic education costs. Last year, we spent $9,800, and the state average was $11,000. And that 98 includes all of those other things and basic education. So, as I said, our expenditures are fairly consistent from year to year. As a service industry, most of our expenses are spent on salaries and benefits. So we have about 79% of our budget is spent on personnel, and 14% is on purchased services. This is on tuition to other districts, utilities, special needs costs. Our purchased services used to be about 21% of our budget, but since we are able to reduce the amount that we're spending on students educated elsewhere and maintain that $4 million, that does shift the pie and puts more emphasis on the salaries and benefits, increasing that percentage and lowering purchased services. Our supplies typically run around 3%, and the 4% for other, majority of that is the auditor and treasurer fees for collection of our tax bills, to send us those funds, and then boards, audits, things like that. So just as a reminder that levies are flat when passed. So as you can see, they call this the bow tie because the top in the circle, the top left-hand corner, you have to ask for more than you need at the time when you need more revenue to spend out in later years as expenditures are increasing due to inflationary costs and things. So it's the bow tie. You ask for more to spend here. So how does our funding cycle look? In fiscal year 20, the $94 million was where our expenditures were, and our cash balance was at $25 million. That's the blue and the green. Our resolution for community partnership said that we would need to have another levy in fiscal year 24, or that's the $98 million. And we start deficit spending now in fiscal year 26, or at the 104. You can also see where our cash balance was down to our $25 million cash reserve policy. We received additional revenue in 2019, and then because of the things that I mentioned earlier with the fiscal annual reductions of $2.6 million in our operations, being able to maintain the $4 million a year turnover and unfilled positions, we have been able to increase our cash balance up to $41 million. So what this does is it lets us look at our projected funding cycle, which, again, the 98 on the red line, the 98 million is fiscal year 24. In fiscal year 26 is 104, where we start deficit spending, and we will need additional revenue or reduced costs by 28. Fiscal year 28, that's the 111. You can see that's where our expenditures are exceeding our revenue. And then that's also, as you can see, the green line where our cash balance, we start that deficit spending, and then that cash balance, because it's one-time money, starts to go. So we'll have to monitor the red line and the green line, and we also have limited on what types of revenue and how we can increase our revenue. We're limited as a school. So this is just another way to show when we start our deficit spending, fiscal year 26. And once we start into deficit spending, it worsens each year. It starts compounding. And so in order to maintain financial stability, we would have to reduce our operations 4.5% in fiscal 28 to balance our budget. And in fiscal year 21, when we reduced our operations 2.6 million, that was 2.8%. So we would almost have to double that reduction in operations and services. So this graph, the blue is revenue and the red is expenditures, and this is to show how revenue is flat when passed and expenditures increase over time where they start to exceed revenue. But for once, we do not have the orange bar above the blue, which is any projected revenue need out through 2027. So as part of our district financial parameters and community partnership resolution, we said we would not increase our expenses more than 3% per year. What happens in 2023 is we have to pay our outstanding obligations from fiscal year 22 where the invoices hadn't come in yet, so it's a timing. Those get paid in 23, and then they're not part of 24's budget, so it's a timing effect. In 2025, we do have some positions that we were paying out of the ESSER funds that need to come back into the general fund, and then we're able to continue operations through there. But on average, through the 5-year forecast, we're at 3%, and we do monitor this on an annual basis. Our cash reserve policy, we stay above our 60-day reserve policy until we get to about 2028, and then you can see it starts to decrease, and by 2029, we're at or below our 60-day cash reserve policy. Other ways to look at why there's needs for cash reserve policy is the black bars are the cash reserve balances in 25 and 26, projected cash reserve. The light blue is 1/2 of our annual property taxes. We receive 60% of our revenue twice a year, right? In August and February. And when the pandemic hit, the state postponed the collection of property taxes till October. So we weren't getting $32 million in August, coming into October. So there are times when our revenue is not coming in like it should. And so by not having a cash reserve balance, we don't have the ability to fall back on things in order to pay $9 million for 1 month of expenses, or $15 million for that salaries and benefits that people have earned the previous year and we owe during the summer. And then the darker blue is our cash balance policy. The yellow is the next year's projected expenditure. So you can just see our operating budget compared to our savings account. That's 25 and 26. This is what we look like in fiscal years 2030 and 2031. That's after we've started our deficit spending. That is without additional revenue or reductions in operations and services. And again, it compares to the same things. half of our annual property taxes, 1 month of expenditures, 2 months of salaries and benefits, or even to our next year's projected budget. So as a recap, our 2017 emergency levy expires and will be last collected in 2027. Our 2019 emergency levy expires and will be last collected in fiscal year 2029. And the resolution for financial parameters and community partnership that said that we would meet our next operating levy in fiscal year 2024, that would last at least 5 years. We have been able to push that out, and we're projecting to start deficit spending in fiscal year 2026 with a need for additional revenue or reduced expenditures, operations, and services in 2028. Any questions?
Amy, when does that 1.59 mils from the Muffin Heights bonds being paid off, when does that hit the taxpayers' bill, where we'll see the reduction?
The Montford Heights bonds roll off the tax duplicate December 31st. They will not be on the January bills. But those are bonds, that's his operation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
When we did the board prep, we talked about some of the regulations that have recently come about as far as like how we present this forecast. Is that any of that? Can you speak to that, or are we not allowed to speak to that?
I can speak to verifiable, factual things that I can source. So that is why I kept referring to the board's approved resolution of financial parameters and community partnership. And once approved, the 5-year forecast, I'll be able to reference the 5-year forecast once.
Yeah, I encourage everybody on the board to talk to Amy about some of the new guidelines and limitations.
Something to note on your slide where you talked about fiscal year 3031, that our cash balance is, that's the assumption of the next slide. That's the assumption of the emergency levies passing.
That's the assumption of maintaining the revenue sources that we have currently.
Okay.
Because we are currently using all of our revenue sources for current operations.
Right.
Where do we fit in with other districts of our same size and with per student? You talked about the spending per student.
We're in the bottom 3 of the county.
So the state average was 11,000.
11,000. We spent 9,800.
We're right at about 7,000.
We spent 9,800 last year, and the state average was 11. The 75 to 8,000 was basic education in the formula.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
That's the state's cost of basic education, not true cost. That's using 2018 cost inputs.
Right, yeah, I knew we spent more, but
And you said
And we're at 9,800.
sorry,
Okay.
you said the 2018, the funding that they were using, that's being worked on right now to redo the funding model?
There's a new biennial
Yeah.
budget for fiscal years 24 and 25.
Okay.
We're hopeful that they will increase those inputs at least up to 2022. That would be great.
Okay. Do they ask for your input for those things?
They have it. We file all our financials with the state
Yeah.
at the end of each year. So they have every district's financial information, and that's why we have so many codes, because they can drill it down as far as they need to.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Anything else? So we need a motion and a second to accept the 5-year forecast, so Amy can submit it.
So moved, accepted.
Second?
Great, passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work on that, Amy.
Thank you.
All right.
So for information tonight, we have a series of courses that are being proposed for next school year. So this will be brought back so that the curriculum department can get these into the program of study for high school students to select for the next school year.
And that brings us to the.
I do have one question, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Where, are those courses that will be offered at both high schools?
Brenda, are they both
all 5 courses were proposed by Coleraine High School. The Northwest High School administrator, teacher, and counselors were asked to review them, so they will be in the program of studies that we have where all students can choose courses, but I do not believe we will have the staff to teach the majority of these courses at Northwest High School, with the exception possibly of honors physics and possibly AP environmental science. So that really is going to depend on student course selection and interest, and then staffing decisions as far as we can't offer classes for 2 or 3 students. That's not fiscally responsible. So they will be in the program of studies for both high schools. Whether or not they can be offered depends on those factors.
So if enough students at Northwest are interested in those and apply for those courses, then we would find the staff to teach those courses?
With the exception of the CCP ASL, so when we go to college level courses, the teacher has to meet the credentialing requirements of the college. And we currently do not have a credentialed teacher to teach CCP at Northwest High School, for ASL, I'm sorry. So that is something we could pursue, but other than that, our current staff could teach these courses that are being proposed. It would require a new hire. It just depends on what master schedule ends up looking like once we have course requests and all of that.
So if there are a few students, could they come to Coleraine to have those classes so they're not held back by what
We have
they?
always said that is possible. I haven't seen a lot of that. Obviously, we have public tech transportation going back and forth, but to go for a single course would be difficult in terms of timing and transportation. But if a student were to indicate that interest, that's something I would work with both high school principals on.
Anything else? All right.
Okay, so the next item is a discussion about the challenge book of All Boys Aren't Blue. So based on our policy 9130, a challenge was submitted for All Boys Aren't Blue. Based on the policy, a committee was put together of teachers, administrators, and parents, counselors, and they review, based on the policy, the appropriateness of the material for the age and maturity of the students, the accuracy of the material, the objectivity of the material, and the use of the material. They provide a recommendation to me that I then share with the board and the complainant. Once that is done, then the board has options for accepting that recommendation. So no challenge material can be removed from a collection or curriculum except by action of the board, and no challenge material may be removed solely because it presents ideas that are unpopular or offensive to some, and any board action to remove or moderate will be accompanied by the statement for reason. So tonight would be the opportunity to discuss the recommendation that you received for All Boys Aren't Blue and determine if there is a different course of action that you would like to take based on the recommendation that was submitted to you that is remain on the shelf in the library.
Okay.
So I'll open the floor for the discussion, and then at the end I'll try to summarize what I'm hearing so that if there is a different option you want to take based on the recommendation, that we can have a resolution at the next meeting for you to vote on.
Sure. I'll start off, if you guys don't mind. I have to write things down because I want to make sure I get all my thoughts down. So this has been a process ongoing for weeks to months to discuss these book challenges. As with any topic, decision or discussion around the well-being of our students, there is a tendency for it to be passionate, emotional, and usually very energy draining at times. I first want to thank everyone involved through the process of the book challenge, our curriculum department and our book review committee. I want to thank the community members who have reached out and shared their thoughts and concerns. And I'm pleased that this is how the process works. This is a collaborative process. I'll speak for just my personal position. I want to speak to my opinion regarding the book and the books in review from the review committee's recommendation. My position primarily comes from my parent status as much as more than a board member. When reading through these books, my overall thoughts and concerns are around the descriptive, illicit, graphic depictions of sexual scenes throughout the book. As a parent and a school board member, I'm very cautious about the students of our district having exposure to illicit material without their parents or guardians knowing that this was available to them. Using community standards as a guideline for my thoughts and directions, I see this as no different than if a movie were playing at the theater. It would more than likely be rated NC-17 or possibly R, requiring a parent or an adult to purchase that minor's ticket. Each of these books that are being presented tonight are available in the public library, and there is more than enough opportunity for the student or student and their parent to both review the book and check it out if so desired. I feel it is our job as Board of Education to find compromise that best represents our community that we represent. I believe there is a compromise here. I personally would like to see the books kept secure and available for parents to check out if they so desire to have their child read and examine the book.
Mark, I'm going to dovetail off what you said. The argument today is, well, there's the internet. I mean, you could pull up so many nasty things on this cell phone. Would have been a 14-year-old boy's dream back when we'd get a hold of a Playboy magazine back in 1970. We thought that was really big stuff. Well, that doesn't even register now to what's out there. But what gets me is if they want to find that on the internet on their own time, on their own phone, that's one thing. But for us to provide that on the shelves in our library in an indirect way, that's us condoning it. And I'm with you, Mark. I don't think it's our role to play censor here, but perhaps better censor guardian. And having a compromise where we keep the book, but under the wraps of needing parental approval would be where I stand. I just don't think there's any reason kids should be looking at this sort of, it's very graphic, folks. For you who haven't seen it, it's not, you know, you might be, oh, it's just normal stuff. No, it's not. Stuff that I didn't even, I mean, even at my age, it still surprises me. So it's pretty rough stuff. And so that's where I would stand, that we come back and instead of banning it completely from Northwest Schools, we put it under the supervision of the superintendent with parents' approval.
Yes, I agree. I appreciate the committee, everyone that took time to read the book and submit their opinions. As a parent, I don't believe that the school is a place for sexual content or any mention of pornography. I also, as a parent, I would want to teach my child these things. I do know that they can get access to this on their phones or in the public library, but just not in the school without my knowledge. If one of my boys accessed this type of material on their school computer, they would probably get in trouble for it. So I am in agreement that we should put these books somewhere where a parent has to approve.
So with the All Boys Aren't Blue, when we were first notified, I believe last year, one of the first things I did was went to the public library and checked out the book so I could read it for myself and see what the book was about. And while there's a section of the book where he's talking about his first sexual experience and the context of the entire book, it's one chapter in I believe it was chapter 15 of 16 chapters on a 300-page book, but the entire book is about him growing up as a gay black male, and in context with all that and everything that he went through at school and his home life and everything. There's a lot of lessons to be learned there. And culminating in I circle back to it's an available resource, not part of the curriculum, but available resource in a high school library, not an elementary, and not even a middle school. It's in a high school library. And we went through our policy and submitted it to our committee for review, and a committee came back with a review to keep the reference book on the shelf, and that's where I'd be inclined to agree with the committee recommendation to leave it on the shelf.
Or can I add something else here?
Sure.
The committee, if I picked a committee, I guarantee you the committee would be different than if Daryl picked a committee, or if Mark picked a committee, or Nicole, or Matt. I don't know who's on this committee. You know, you say parents, well, that sounds innocuous. Oh, just, you know, these are, you know, but the parents I would pick wouldn't be the same parents probably a lot of other people would pick. So let's just lose sight that this committee is some judicial group of wise men and women. We don't know that. They might be. But I would like to, in the future, if there is, and this is the first time this has come up in a year since I've been back on the board, that we, the board members, get to pick at least one of the committee members. We are the ones that represent the voters, the residents. We're the moral compass, if you will, by virtue of the election. People know where we stand, at least the informed voter does. And if they don't like it, they can vote us out. That's fine. But as long as we're voted in, I think that this board should have at least one of the positions on that committee determining whether or not this sort of stuff should be on the library shelves for ninth graders, 14-year-olds to see. Thank you, Mark.
But also remember, the committee is a group of volunteers. This isn't anyone's part of their job. They volunteered outside of their normal duties to do this and take part in this. So,
Yeah. Well, you got to get the people to do it, but I think, you know, we could find somebody who'd be willing to.
And based on the policy, the board would be outside of that committee because you are the last stop. So after the committee makes a recommendation, then the five of you would be that last stop. So so with the conversation, Mark, do you want to kind of, I've been taking some notes. Do you feel like there's a recommendation that I can bring back next time?
I think, like listening to Kim speak this evening, I believe that there is potentially benefit to having the books, but I do believe if my daughter checked that out and had questions or concerns, or my son, I personally would like to know about that and have discussion with them. And so in doing so, I feel like the compromise is we're not removing the book, we're just making sure that the parent understands that this book is here and the parent can give consent to check it out.
So the resolution, just to be clear, that I will bring back in the next meeting is that for the book, All Boys Aren't Blue, that it would be pulled from the shelf but kept in circulation, available by checkout by the parents only. And the reason that you are doing that is because of the graphic depiction of an illicit sexual scene between two characters. I believe that's what you said, Mr. Gilbert?
Correct.
Okay. Does that encompass what I heard?
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate.
Okay. I will get that drafted and to you for your consideration before the next board meeting. For the book Flamer, the committee followed the same process and the same evaluation of the material, provided the recommendation that it remain on the shelf. And then, again, I will defer to you for the conversation about whether you want to accept the decision by the committee or amend that, and then I'll try to, at the end, if you want to do something different, try to make sure I can encapsulate your wishes so I can get the resolution for you.
I feel that we have the same compromise with this book. I encourage anybody who is in question to read the book and listen and understand some of the language that is in there. Again, I don't feel like we're yanking it off the shelf, but we are making it in parental guidance. I mean, like I said, my personal opinion is if this were a movie, somebody under the age of 18 or under 17 would be able to check this out, and then they can do that in our school district.
My feelings are the same on this one. In fact, I think this one is perhaps a little bit more graphic than the other book. But again, having it available with parental consent seems to be a fair compromise.
Agree. Parental consent.
I have that part. The other part that I need is the rationale specific to Flamer. in terms of the content that is objectionable that would require it to be following that process. So I just need that content information.
Sexually inappropriate for 14-year-olds without parental involvement.
Language and sexual content for me.
Same. So my comments are pretty similar on the previous book. And, you know, this Flamer, you know, I did the same thing, checked it out from the library, read it for myself. And there's a lot of it's a lot of sexual innuendo and a lot of description of bullying of this boy's, you know, coming of age and dealing with his sexuality and hearing what some of the other boys say. And as a father of 4 boys, it's like a lot of this stuff, it's like, you know, common innuendo and the types of things they say that, yes, they're, you know, inappropriate, and you wouldn't expect, you know, some of the phrases for a student to be able to say, but it's an example of the, you know, bullying of another character in the book, you know, as part of the story. And it's a struggle with, you know, finding another book that would be appropriate to describe bullying, you know, without having examples of said bullying in the book. And, you know, I think I had a community member, you know, make a comment that, you know, to address bullying, we need something more wholesome. And, you know, I struggle, it's like, so are we supposed to find a book that has nice bullying in it? You know, because bullying, you know, in itself is, you know, inappropriate and not nice. But that's where I stand on that book as well. To agree with the recommendation of the committee.
So the majority is recommending to keep it secure and checked out by parents due to the language and sexual content of the book around the bullying.
Well, more than bullying. I mean, let's don't fool ourselves. This book is not strictly about bullying. It's about sexual experiences described in the most graphic terms that even the most drunken sailor probably wouldn't use. And I've been there. I know what military guys talk like. And I don't think I've seen anything like that when I've been around a bunch of drunken airmen.
Anything else? Any other comments?
I appreciate that Matt shares his feelings on it too, just because it's not easy to to speak about something like this and to know that you may not, everybody's not going to agree, but that we can respectfully
Thank you.
each other's opinions.
Okay. I'll bring the resolutions back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thanks.
So for the update tonight, I just want to make sure that we continue to inform the public about our redistricting process. We currently have situations where some of our buildings are overcrowded. Specifically, Pleasant Run Elementary is significantly overcrowded. That's happened over a period of years where it's continued to have increased enrollment in that northern community of our district, and so we now need to address that. And so we have a consultant who is an expert in enrollment studies and redistricting who is leading us through a very statistical, data-driven analysis of housing trends, enrollment trends, to really look at how do we address the overcrowding in some of our buildings to make sure that we're utilizing all of our spaces appropriately, maximizing those spaces, and alleviating some of the stress on some of our buildings that aren't able to use some of the spaces that were designed for some unique student experiences because they've been basically converted to a classroom. And so this process is important. It also is dovetailing with the phase 2 of the master facility plan so that we have a short-term redistricting plan for next year and a long-term redistricting plan in alignment with the master facility plan to make sure that we have clean feeders, that we are addressing some of these very significant issues. So we did have a virtual meeting that kicked it off last week. We have a website that you can link to from our district website to get information about it, and we do have a public session on December 13th at Corning High School where the consultant will share some of the new boundaries for redistrict maps so that we can get public input. And the public input is extremely important. So there are multiple ways to give that. You don't have to be at that meeting. You can see the information on the website. You can view the first meeting so you can get the overview of the process and the data that's being used. And there's a form that you can submit your feedback from that form directly. And we want to make sure that all feedback is heard so that we can address all of that and make decisions that are best moving forward for the district and for kids so that they can have the best experience possible. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. And please go to the website for more information. And then last for me, although we should have a continuous season of thankfulness, we have a kind of spotlight on being thankful this time of the year. And I just want to share my thankfulness for this community, this district, our parents who are engaged, our board who is very supportive of our mission and vision, and for our staff who are daily going above and beyond. You mentioned earlier about the sub shortages, the FMLA, all of the different things that could create stress. And in lieu of all that stress, our staff rise above the challenge, love our kids, and they go beyond to know every kid by name, by story, by strength, and by need. And it is a true testament to the heart and soul of not what we do as a district, but who we are as a district. And I couldn't be more proud or thankful to be a part of it. And so I just wanted to share that thankfulness in this season of being thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. You brought up letters training, or letters earlier about letters training. Is that, someone had asked me once that we were asking for numbers on how many hours they're spending on letters training. Is that something the administrative office is asking from the teachers to submit hours of letters training, or how does that work?
No, we actually have letters days blocked out by our PD calendar. And so some of them are where they're getting in-person training, and some of them are work days where they're working through the workbook and doing all of that online module. And the modules actually track the time for the teachers. So we can kind of monitor their level of engagement and making sure they're getting progress through all of the different modules and chapters to stay up to speed with the training.
Are they expected to do a certain number of hours? Or I know that wasn't something that came from me, so I don't know if it came from someone else. But
We actually built the PD calendar, and we have extra days of professional development to account for all of the hours. So they have the hours within the school day to do it. We monitor the completion of that time.
So just a couple comments. I wanted to go back to the redistricting process. I know with the timing and everything, it seems like it was the levy failed, so now we have these community meetings with the redistricting process. I just want to clarify that was something that we as a board began by hiring this company to do this for us prior to the election. That redistricting is something that needs to happen independent of whether or not phase 2 comes into play. And phase 2 is dependent on other factors.
That's why it's a two-part, because we have to do it now and we have to think long-term. So we can't always live in the moment. Sometimes we have to respond to the moment, but with an eye to the future. And that's why this is a two-phase to make sure that we are looking at what we need to do now, because we've continued to watch our enrollment at Pleasant Run Elementary specifically. And we've had to add teachers and add sections. And this year, based on booming enrollment, we had to actually convert the stage to a classroom for kindergarten. And we want to make sure that we want our kids to experience a new building, but not in that capacity. So we want to make sure we can alleviate that. So it is in response to an ongoing knowledge of the data, but also with a view for the future.
I think we can also understand some negativity around it because we did redistrict before the new buildings. And so what can we learn from that process going forward? Some people have lost maybe some faith in our ability to do that, not saying anyone here, but that we did it wrong the last time, or that what can we learn from that?
It was an internal process last time. This time we are relying on an expert who looks at demographics, who looks at enrollment projections, birth rates, housing developments, and really analyzes a lot of different kinds of data to make sure that we are looking at the big picture and not just the moment. So we are very thankful to have the consultant who's leading us through that, and it is someone who's worked with us on our master facility plan, who has done enrollment projections for us, so we have a lot of faith and confidence in this company.
And it is a process we should go through about every 5 years. Housing developments and things like
Sure.
that. they're really through.
There's a lot of moving parts to that, and there's no way that, and I'm not speaking ill of our staff, but there's just no way you can be an expert at that. I mean, there's a, I don't even know all the complexities to it. I could only imagine thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that brings us to board member comments. Chris?
Mark, I've got one real positive thing here, a reflection on the Northwest School District, and that is that in this past election 2 weeks ago tomorrow, a Northwest High School graduate, Ms. Hall, you are certainly aware of her now, Sharon Kennedy, was elected Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court. Whether you like her politics or not, that's quite an accomplishment for somebody from Northwest High School, and I congratulate her and the excellent education that the Northwest Local School District and the Northwest High School gave her to accomplish such feats.
That's fine.
That's great.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Lisa for coming to talk about food service. Also, I attended the school board conference this past weekend and enjoyed networking and getting to know everybody a little more here, but also networking and learning from other board members, just hearing things that we are also dealing with, and some of the, the transportation is not just our district or the different things that are going on. So also thank Carrie and the team that worked on the bond issue. I know a lot of people put time into that, as well as Amy and Daryl for going around, and Chris, all the meetings that you guys spoke at. So just appreciate everyone's time on that. With the bond issue failing, and then Monday morning, I get an email from 2 of my kids' schools that remind them to wear a coat, which neither one would do if I told them to wear a coat, but that the boiler wasn't starting. So, I mean, these are just a few of the ongoing things that our kids and staff are faced with that really need to be addressed. So, and then also thank Corning Township Police Department and Brad and everyone here that responded and have worked so hard to keep our kids safe. And then also Mitzi, Lily, Kevin, and Chris at Butler Tech, and Miss Turney Smith. That was awesome. I can't wait to check out their spirit shop. And Gabby, Justin, Olivia, and Jack for their presentation as well. So just thank you. And thank you to everyone that spoke tonight.
Pretty much ditto on a lot of what Nicole just said. The students' names that she read earlier, just, awesome to hear. And, the longer you have to talk, the, happier I can be at times.
That's why I bring 2 waters.
Right. Very appreciative of that. And, thankful for the students that came and did the exercise with us on academic teaming, and also the students that came and, talked about the night spirit shop. It's really impressive what they're able to accomplish there at Northwest High School. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Again, we all kind of overlap on everything. It was, we went to Columbus last week, got to meet Sally and Susan more than we ever have an opportunity to, so that was a lot of fun, getting to know them. Today I had lunch with the police chief and one of his sergeants, and I wanted to just thank him for the response to our Pleasant Run campus a few weeks ago. It's not a pleasant thing to talk about, but unfortunately it is ongoing. I mean, there's probably not a night you can turn the news on that you don't hear this. And the men and women charged into our building absolutely with zero hesitation. There would be no debating outside what was going to happen. They were going to protect our staff and our kids, period. There's no question. So I say that if you run into any of them, thank them, because they will certainly lay their lives down for us in a second. the presentation tonight was amazing. I really, really, really like this. You guys know I'm kind of all about the wraparound services and the behavioral health aspect. One of the neat things that I saw that we have, I talked to Daryl about afterwards, was this Hope Squad where peers are trained to a certain degree for their peers to come to them and share behavioral health and concerns, suicide, depression. That was the coolest thing I saw up there. And listening to these kids, and I asked the one little girl, I said, tell me your success story. She said, I had a friend that was going to commit suicide, and she talked to me, and we got her the help. Nothing better than that. So engaging these kids to engage with each other. We're adults. They don't want to listen to us a lot of times. So for them to be influenced by their peers makes the peers that are helping them even stronger. So it's win-win as far as you can see it. And lastly, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Cut on your tails, Daryl. Life seems to be pretty hectic, and it just doesn't seem to be easing up. So I challenge everybody to just kind of take a break and really, really be thankful for your family and those that are around you and your loved ones. That's all that I have.
I have a question here, just to, possibly keep this neater and cleaner as far as how we're doing this. Normally, after executive session, we return, we don't have anything to act on a report, but this evening, that's not the case. And normally, Waycross leaves. Would it be appropriate to go into motion for executive session to discuss personnel, and then return from executive session to complete our action that was tabled from earlier, and then
Go back for
go
the
back
rest.
into executive session? And at that point, there will be nothing to report or act on after we return? Am I explaining that properly? Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, we could do the executive session in chunks, come back, do the other item. We would just have to do what we did before with amending the agenda to.
And that way,
Waycross can.
I don't know, I don't foresee the first part being very lengthy, and we'd be able to return, and then Waycross would still be here to record the finality of our actions in the meeting.
Yep.
So would that require another amending the agenda, or, okay?
Well, when we get back, it would, right? Because we can go into executive session now, and then.
You gotta say why, and then for only that reason. We can't read the whole thing. So we need a separate, we can't vote on that motion, we need a separate motion. So we still need to amend the agenda.
So my motion is to amend the agenda to add a executive session prior to the one on the agenda, to go in executive session to discuss personnel.
Yeah, employment of a public official.
Right,
or
the
employee.
proper legal terminology. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Mr. Gilbert,
Aye.
Mr. Teetsort,
Aye.
I did that wrong, but Mrs. Talby,
Aye.
Mr. Heather.
Okay. So then the board will approve a motion to move into executive session to consider the employment or discipline of a public employee or official. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the motion into executive session as listed.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Teetsort,
Well, do we do this one or no?
you can't vote on that one. That one's not relevant anymore.
Oh,
That's the second one.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I
Okay.
interrupted you.
Mr. Teetsort,
Aye.
Mrs. Talby,
Aye.
Mr. Heather, Mr. Gilbert.
Aye.
So we'll go have executive session about that, and then we'll come back, vote on the item that's remaining, and then go back into executive session for the other topics. Thank you.
Remotion.
So is there any discussion?
Yeah, the discussion, I was a candidate for the job, I'm no longer a candidate, so I'm not stating someone of my conscience on this, and other than that, I can say enough about it.
Anything else?
Passes 3-1. Now we go back to executive session. Need a motion and a second to
So
go
moved.
back.
Second?
Do we need to read again what we're going to executive session for this time?
The board will approve a motion to move into executive session to conference with an attorney concerning disputes that are subject to pending or imminent legal action, to discuss the evaluations of the superintendent treasurer, and to consider the employment or discipline of a public employee or official.
I have a motion and a second. We'll call for vote. Passes 4-0.
Now say yours.
Which bill? Oh, yeah.
When we return.
Yeah, when we return, there'll be no action items. It'll just be to adjourn the meeting.
Thanks for hanging around.
Thanks, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.